when the world's too dark of a place to be, and you need an escape from reality. Open up those pages, a sci-fi or fantasy, whatever genre you please. Join a book club, 'cause you won't read it on your own. Join a book club, so you'll be held accountable. It's just a means to an end, but you're doing it with your friends. So join the book club by DLC.
Oh, well, hello, book clubbers. How are you? Apologies, this is a little late. We're recording in the wee hours of the evening. We're glad you're with us. I'm Jeff Kanata. I'm here with Lana Bashinsky. Hi, Lana.
Hello, good evening, both of us here. Let me tell you, when we have it in the morning and we hit with the theme song, do a little dance, it's energizing. It feels good. And you know what? Now I guess I'm at that age where I also need that at 8 p.m. I need the little infusion of energy because I'm just as tired as I am at 8 a.m. Feels
Indeed.
good.
Well, we hope that you are also getting a bit of infusion of energy. We're excited to talk about chapters 5 and 6 of House of Chains, the fourth novel in the Malazan Book of the Fallen by Steven Erikson. Oh my goodness, I can't wait to get to it. But we always start the show with a non-spoiler topic. And this is a fun one. Lana and I were talking before we started recording, and Lana asked me if I had ever been in a real book club. And I asked her the same question. And spoiler alert, the answer for both of us was no, we never have. And so we thought, let's dig into that topic. Why not? Why? So first of all, we call this the book club. I kind of love the idea of a book club. And I love the fact that we are, you and I, in this book club with a bunch of people we've never met. That are, this our digital community of folks that are in this book club with us. I love that. But I have a two-part dig-in question for you, Lana. Mm-hmm. What do you think is the platonic ideal of a real-life book club?
The platonic ideal of a real life book.
What would you want it to be? I mean to say.
So, like, my ideal of a book club is gotta be, the potluck situation. Everybody's bringing a treat. Number one, I got my priorities in order. Snack time abound.
Yes. Here's the problem with that. I'm going to cut you off right there because
that's already an issue. The food.
We're noshing. We're chatting. Book gets ignored.
No way. No way. The book does not get ignored.
Okay. All right.
I am, I'm very on task. Let me say this, if I'm running a book club, I can't help myself. It's like, get here at this time. If you want to get here early because you want to do chatting that's unrelated, or you want to not have to talk and eat at the same time, you got to be here. But at whatever time sharp, discussion starting, baby. And that doesn't mean don't show up late, but it does mean we're going to talk about the thing because I can't help myself. I can barely make it through a non-spoiler topic before wanting to dive into this thing that we're reading. I could barely make it through, appetizer hour, or the hors d'oeuvre zone at the book club. But
Right.
I think the thing that it's tough for me to envision what an ideal of a book club is, because this is sort of my first experience with the book club. I'm like, well, it's kind of this.
Yeah.
It's
I love that.
sitting and diving into the book that we're talking about it and having some amount of okay, you have that guide that you go through that gives us the clear touchstone. So we're making sure we're touching on it, all the pieces. So having some kind of rhyme or reason to the discussion, I think, is important. But the part that I have trouble picturing is having it with more than two people at a time.
Yes.
So I want to dive into this a little bit more, but I want to hear about what your ideas are, because I want to talk a little bit about my existing experience with book clubs, but not before I hear what your ideas of a book club should be.
Well, I think the perfect book club starts with everybody dancing.
At least 30-second dance break.
At least 30 seconds of dancing.
They got to be into it, though.
This may be why nobody has responded to my invitations to the book club at the
IRL.
Kanata abode. Yeah. No, an IRL book club to me has always, this is so funny because I've never really sort of analyze this thought pattern, but it always seemed to me to be a recipe for failure because having never experienced it, it always, I think my wife has been part of a real life book club, but every time I've ever heard someone describe what a book club is, it was, we all decided we're going to read this book. And then we got together and we chatted about everything except the book for a few hours. And then went, oh, look at the time. I liked the book. Did you guys like it? Yes, me too. Okay. Well, good night, everybody. That was my second or third hand experience of understanding what a book club was. And I think there's something about that IRL thing where it's kind of just an excuse to get together instead of being on task like you're talking about.
My only other experience with book club is through my mom, who had book club. My mom reads like crazy. She always has about 4 or 5 books going at the same time.
That's amazing.
She's like, here's the books that I finished in the last couple of days. And she would always have like a book club book, 2 personal books, something she's reading because somebody else just asked her to. Crazy. And so every once in a while, book club would be at our house because there's like 10 women she was in this book club with. And so it would rotate between whose houses they went to. And I remember walking in as like a kid or like a young teenager, and they would be like staring and having the discussion about the book. But then the parts that I always heard my mom talk about was like, oh, we picked a book. I hate this book. I hate this book that we're reading. Somebody chose this book. It sucks. Or somebody chose this book and 5 people didn't do the reading. And so 5 of the people would be constantly trying to derail it to have a different discussion because they weren't invested in it.
They're just talking about how the cover looks. They're like the kid in class who was like, my book report is it's both a catcher who happens to be in the rye.
And like those things would eat away at my soul. Like, okay, you didn't do the reading that week, but you want to come like listen to the discussion, like ask questions to people who did it.
Yeah.
I'm here for that. Like trying to participate in a way that is focused, but showing up and being like, I picked this book and I didn't like it, so I stopped reading it. So I'm actually going to talk over here about something else. I'm like, that's disrespectful.
Yeah. No sidebars. No sidebars.
And so I can't imagine. I think what you're saying with like, it seems like a recipe for failure.
Yeah. I think
I need people who are like as anal as I am to do a book club with. Hey!
Yay, we found each other. I do think that part of the reason you pointed this out, and I think it's astute. I think part of the reason this works so well is because it's just 2 of us, right? Mm-hmm. Anytime you get into a party setting, you brought up the perfect point. I have a hard time imagining like, okay, it's Diane's turn. Give her the floor. Diane, what did you think about chapter 5?
Yeah.
All right. Thomas, what did you think about, it's like, it just feels like, how do you even, I guess you could just have this big open discussion, but I don't know. I
feel like it would take forever. And I bet it would be like a 1 chapter a week situation. Maybe it would be like, okay, we're going to go through and everybody's going to read 4 chapters, but then you like pair off and have like groups of people dedicated to a certain chapter. So it'd be like, oh, Lana and Jeff are going to cover chapters 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Steven and Jamie are going to cover chapters 3 and 4. So there's like a sharing and then you change up who's pairing off with each other each week or something like that. So you can read faster and then not have to feel obliged to comment on everything, but also not have to hear everybody talk about everything.
I mean, I suspect most book clubs are like, we're reading this book this month. Everybody arrive when you've completed the book.
When you're done the book.
Yes. And so now we can just do our general thoughts about the entire, oh, I loved that scene where the vampire bit that lady. It's like, oh, yeah. That was a good scene. But I didn't like how the lady then turned into a werewolf. That didn't seem to make any sense. That kind of
how it works usually, isn't it? When they've done the book, they get together.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, that makes more sense, I think, probably. I don't know. I mean, it does feel like this thing. I've never attempted it. I've never been invited to one.
Same.
I think I think they're cool in the abstract, but it always just seemed to me like this this thing that wasn't really what it was. It was just an excuse to do something else. It's like we need a reason to get together because we all want to see each other, and the book is an excuse. It's not really what we're there to do. You know?
How am I going to see you if I don't have like a weighing sense of guilt for a month beforehand?
Exactly.
Impossible.
I need homework.
Exactly.
I am so curious what folks watching, if you've been parts of book clubs, if they've been successful or unsuccessful, I'd love to hear about it. You can always email us dlcfeedback@gmail.com. Great way to tell us, or obviously you can leave comments on the video or in our Discord, which is 5x5 DLC on Discord. I'd love to know if people have had a positive experience of a book club that stays on task, or if you just had a quiche and that was the night.
And for how long? I feel like it's like D&D campaigns when people are like, I've actually had one for 5 years, and people are like, wow.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, we read 3 books.
One half a chapter at a time.
Yeah. Anyway, it's great. It's funny that neither of us have done. This is our first book. Hey, thanks for being part of my first book club, Lana.
Hey, thanks for being a part of mine. Thanks for inviting me to a book club.
And thank you, everybody watching. It's just been such a delight to have this larger community building around this, and seeing people's reaction to our reaction. It's just been so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
And on that note, it is time to get into spoilers for chapters 5 and 6 of House of Chains. These chapters I will refer to as the squee chapters, because that is what I was doing throughout them. Like, oh, look who it is.
I know.
Oh, look who it is. Oh, look who that is. I know. Oh, look who showed up.
I was like, it's the greatest hits. Every time there's a name, I'm like, I love that name. I love that name. I
can't believe we're seeing that person again.
Wait. That person wasn't in the same book as the other people, and now they're all together.
They're in the same book. So many squeeze I had reading this week. Let's start it off. Chapter 5. We start off with Commander Blistig. We know that person.
I recognize that name. Feels
recognize
good.
that name. Yes. Not one of the most memorable characters, but a character I remember. And but the coolest thing about this scene is they are the Aaron Guard are raiding this building, this room to find Squint.
Yeah, it's a time jump. I know that we've brought it up before, recognizing the dates that are in the things. I really should take to heart.
It's like they're there to contextualize things for us,
and yet,
I'm sure I'll pick it up.
I like realizing it when we pull Squint out of the wreckage of his own depression.
Yes. And honestly, this was one of those characters. I think I even said this when we talked about it at the end of Deadhouse Gates. I really thought this was one of those characters that just existed in this brief moment and would never be seen again. And it just felt so amazing to be like, oh my gosh, they went and found Squint, and Squint is dealing with the fallout of that one horrible thing he had to do, shooting the arrow at Coltane.
The act of
and we don't really get any Squint stuff, just the fact that they are grabbing Squint and pulling him out, and kind of it seemed to me capturing him for his own good.
Yeah. And it kind of, I mean, everything about it was pulling you right back into the sort of gravitas of that moment of Deadhouse Gates, and in those end sequences, and knowing that we're back in that aftermath of that section of these books it just recaptured me in there instantaneously. It's great.
And of course, we're in the perspective of a relatively new character, not super new, because we briefly were introduced to Gamut, the new fist. New High Fist, I guess, that used to be House Perrin's guy.
Security guard.
Security guard. Yeah, head of security, I guess.
We haven't seen him since literally the prologue of the first book. Is that correct?
I think there's a moment. Isn't there a moment where we like see Perrin come back home and he's there? But I don't think that was the prologue, was it? I thought that was
I forgot about that time.
Yeah.
I only thought about Perrin being like, I want to be a soldier. And he's like, sure, kid.
Yeah.
In like the very first moment of the books.
Right. But I thought there was a moment where he comes home and, is like checking in on Felicin and it's a very short scene, but he's just like returned home and then leaves. And I think Gammet's in that.
I think you're right.
Either way, interesting, that Tavor has promoted him because obviously she considers him loyal, and he has feelings about whether or not, why she promoted him. And we are in his perspective a bit, but the second scene, we're in the perspective of someone named Strings.
Which, as soon as I read Strings, I was like, oh, that guy's got to... I hope I see that guy making buds with Fiddler.
Fiddler and Strings.
I thought that.
A whole little
ensemble.
String section. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. Very cool. I literally read that scene, and you get to the end and they're like, and it's just
the name swap.
And I was like, and I went back and reread the entire scene immediately. Just like without even going on, I was like, I got to read that whole scene again. Now having Fiddler in my head instead of this new character.
Well,
cool.
What's so interesting about it is like this guy, like the treatment of him. I'm like, who is Strings? Who is Strings? I just, the whole time we're reading, I'm like, who is this guy? Because he's written with such a familiarity. Like from like the captain or whoever he's talking to on the boat.
Lieutenant Renal.
Renal. He's like, who's basically like, who do you think you are? I feel like is the stand-in for the reader who's basically like, yeah, who are you? It feels like I should know you. And then at the end, it's like, oh, I very, very much do. Felt very satisfying.
I didn't have any whiff of that because it felt to me like when we were introduced to Gruntle and his sort of gang, it just felt like, oh, Renal is new, Strings is new, like this new little POV character. What do we, this guy's enlisting. What is he doing? He's a little older than most. He's got some gray in his hair. He's kind of cool and clearly, this Renal guy doesn't trust him, and there's something cool about this character for sure. Then we get to the end of the scene, and it's like Fiddler, and I was like, I didn't see it coming at all.
I think the thing that got me about it, I didn't see it coming that it was Fiddler, but seeing the name Strings after all of the other people that we've sort of met this whole time, that's I think the first time this book that there's been like a name that's not a name, that's like clearly seems like a nickname to me. And in my brain, I was like, that's like a bridge burner thing.
Yeah.
Which I felt like, dually validated by in kind of like the lore dump we get in a little bit. Mm-hmm. But that tie-in of like, who this guy? That's how bridge burners name themselves. That's not how who is this? And it was like, oh, okay. Permitted.
Yeah. Yeah. And already we're sort of getting, as you said, information about the fallout of the chain of dogs, and what has the mess that was left in its wake of all these various groups of soldiers that now have to be cobbled into some sort of fighting force, and we have to figure all that out. And we knew at the end of Deadhouse Gates that Tavor arrived. Right, that was like they were going to swoop in and save everything, and they just didn't get there in time to do so. So it's cool that we're picking that up and seeing like what's happening here with like we gotta, Aaron didn't fall.
Keneb, was it Keneb? Like Blistig warned Keneb, or Keneb warned Blistig to hold some people back so they're able to still be where they're at.
Yes, Blistig did not follow that order. Pardon me for my. Did not follow the order, and has like some guilt about not following the order. We find out later, but so there's all these different kind of fractured factions of soldiers that are we're trying to, build into a cohesive force, and Tavor is there, which we will meet in a second. And we meet Korik, who is this other a Seti, half Seti, which is a tribe of the Kwantali. So just interesting stuff. We meet one new soldier named Smiles, and some of those other folks. That'll happen in a scene in a second. But the next scene is another squee moment for me. It just felt like bam after bam after bam after bam of we've just been through 4 chapters of this entirely new culture, all these new dynamics. Yes, we find out that we knew that guy right at the end of those 4 chapters, but it felt like we were in just this completely new world.
And we had the Nam connection. So we weren't
yes,
99% different with this little bit of peaking samesies. And now it's I know what you want.
Yeah,
I know what you're here for, readers.
Here's your old pals. So Lestara Yill and Pearl are in the next scene. Lestara Yill is waiting at this tavern, and of course Pearl strolls in, and there's kind of an interesting dynamic between those two, because she was kind of trusting him and kind of digging on him, and then she got betrayed by Pormqual. They arrested all the Red Blades, right? And now Pearl is back and is like, hey, there's a meeting happening between all the muckety mucks, all the bigwigs, and I want to be in on that. I don't know what it's going to be, but evidently the adjunct wants us there.
Pearl makes me feel greasy when I read.
I don't know. I mean, we saw obviously that he wanted to kill Kalam. Doesn't make me like him very much. And that was some backstabby, betrayally kind of stuff. But I still don't kind of have a handle on Pearl feels like a chaotic.
He gives me a competent Silgar vibes.
Yeah, competent Silgar is good. I like that. Very funny. Okay, so they go to the meeting. All the coolest folks are there. Gamut, the new fist. Admiral Nock, who we know was the admiral who was trying to get there to save everybody, to prevent the chain of dogs even happening, but was held in the port by Pormqual.
What a chump.
Total Pormqual. The commander of the Red Blades, Tene Baralta, I want to say. Tene Baralta. And they're all kind of hanging out, waiting for Tavor to show up. Admiral Nock we get some context on who Admiral Nock is, part of the old guard of Dujek and Whiskey Jack and those those
the
cool
OGs.
Folks. The OGs. Yeah, literally old guard.
Yep.
Yeah. And there's these people whose names I've seen before, Cartheron Crust and Urko Crust. They're Nippons, right?
Yeah.
So they're part of that old guard too. And we've heard them referenced before. I can't remember specifically when, but they seem to be important of the the old timey old OGs.
I know that we've heard their names before, but the whole time I was reading this whole section, this was to me, definitely the most dense. It was oh yeah, I'll tell you about my history. And then it was you're reading every name that you sort of knew that was the old guard. And you're like, this feels so important.
Yes.
I don't know why. And reading Urko Crust or whatever, those names, I kept being Urko Crep? No. Cruel? No. And I don't know why those two kept hitting me in the head while I kept reading those names. I know we've read them before. Yeah. I don't know why they're relevant.
Well, they were murdered. They were drowned in the sea Right during this sort of the power shift that happened to Lacine. I think they were sort of the old guard. She didn't trust them, and they mysteriously drowned. That kind of thing.
Oh, was it that they mysteriously drowned though? This isn't the captain who was the guy from before. He wasn't the guy who's like, I drowned and I stole all that money from Aaron.
Oh,
and
maybe
he's the keeper. That's what it is.
Oh, okay. Did you just put that together?
I was like trying to remember what the connection was between these people, or like what. Yes. So the keeper,
as usual, you're like one step ahead because that may very well be.
That's what it is, because there was that like quote at the beginning of the book that was like, can't these people actually stay drowned? And the point is that they're not. And then the keeper from before, I'm like, isn't that the captain? And I was like, no, because that hasn't. We already met that guy, and it's Urko Crust or whatever his name is. But then that is the same guy because there's a time jump. And so that's the past, but now this is the present. And that's the guy who helped them before he was ensorcelled.
And he stole all the money from the treasury in Aaron.
Yes.
Dude.
That's the guy.
Bonus points.
We got there. I think I already went
you got
through this.
there. I did not put that together at all. I think that's dead on. But anyway, so part of what's I think interesting here is that there's some sort of mystery being drawn about why Lacine, or formerly known as Surly, was Nippon, and yet all the Nippon people were the ones that did not support her. Like they draw that conclusion of like, hey, why didn't her own people even like her? They should have at least had her back, and that's not what went down.
But because that was the part that I also was like trying to put together as because it said that the Nippon people disappeared, and it was like they disappeared their support. They didn't physically disappear; they just weren't there for her. And is it just that they were like not down with imperialism in general? They're like, we don't care if it's you and you're like one of us. We don't get down with the imperialist attitude.
I don't know, because weren't they supporters of Kalinved and Dancer? Like they're the OG Imperials, right? They're the people that put together the empire, right?
But I thought that was like kind of against people's wills.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying is that were they not, they wouldn't have been against that because they were they were a party to that. Were they not?
No, you're probably right.
I don't know.
I need to like reread. It's not like a long section. Yeah. But there was like so much there all of a sudden that I just felt like I was really scrunching through it, and it like bounced off my brain in a weird way.
Yeah. Well, then Tavor strolls in, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is the first time we've actually seen her.
That's correct. Right? I was so excited.
Because we saw her like on a horse in the distance, but this is the first time she's like strolled in and spoken.
I was half expecting her to not talk to us.
Yeah.
But I was excited that we're actually engaging.
Yeah.
Getting to know her.
And she seems like a supremely competent badass also. She walks in, she's got an Ototoro sword, which I guess is like how you're noted as an adjunct is you've got the, because remember Lauren had the sword that she gave to Perrin when she died. And she comes in, she's like, this, you guys are now promoted. You got soldiers, pick them. Meeting adjourned. And they're like, we usually talk. It's like a book club. We usually just hang out and have quiche. There's no quiche.
Yeah, we brought appies.
Yeah. What? No? Okay, we're dismissed. All right. She said, I said good day. So I thought that was a really cool intro to her, is that she just feels like she's got her shit together. You know what I'm saying? She's like,
I agree.
And there's like these stages of meetings. She's living your life, Lana. She's got meeting after meeting after meeting.
Yeah, just resonant.
Scheduled back to back.
I felt for her. I'm sorry, I'm already late to my next one. Get out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so then she immediately is like, all right, Gamut with me.
Yeah.
Like do the old walk and talk, West Wing or whatever. And then Pearl strides in and I'm like, ew.
Well, first, before that meeting, she's got a, intermediary meeting, interstitial meeting. where the Wiccans,
Oh,
our old
yeah.
Wiccan witch friends, Nether and Nil and Temule, walk in, the sort of teenage mutant ninja warlocks.
Yeah.
And she's like, okay, cool. You're our mages. All right, moving on. They're like, we don't want to be that. We don't want to be that.
And they're
And
like,
she's
also,
well,
we don't have anything else to give.
yeah.
And she's like, well, you better find something.
yeah. Do you remember that Coltane, that guy you liked a lot? Remember how you promised you would serve him forever? Well, guess what? You're still serving him in a way, kind of, because you're serving me. And
Because he worked for me,
he worked for me. Yeah.
It's called Chain of Command, little babies.
Yeah. So she's sort of like constituting the army. She needs mages in the army. She's going to use our little Wiccan warlocks.
I also find it just so interesting that, I mean, I know it's like for that moment, and it seems like the thing that she did out of convenience, but like going through and reading Dead House Gates and how much I felt like I was, rooting for Coltane, wanting to see the Chain of Dogs come out as like unscathed as possible kind of thing. And then seeing her be like, that was me. I'm connected to that. I'm the next step of that.
Yeah.
It's interesting to see very directly her being sort of positioned into, we saw her mostly through Felicen's eyes. It's like, my sister, she's evil. She's done this to me.
Right. Yes.
And so but her saying, I'm the next step in what Coltane's journey was. Now you serve me, but she's a lot colder.
Yeah.
But she still seems like somebody who is sort of being positioned for me to root for, which I think is interesting.
Well, I think she's a fascinating character already, right? We've literally seen her for a scene and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so interesting because, like you said, through Felicen's eyes, we viewed her as this purely malevolent force of like, oh my gosh, she threw her sister into the the mines, and she completely ruined her life. But now we learn that she was trying to do that to save her. But also, it's not that simple, right? Because evidently she arrested her own parents and her sister just as a way to sort of,
for her career to progress,
show her loyalty to Lacine, which is not very cool.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but also she's really, I think she's trying to thread this needle and do the noble thing in a certain sense and undermine Lacine. Because right here, as you said, we get into this new scene with Pearl, and she pulls Gambit into the hallway, and she says, in this room, the Empress is not present.
What did you think about that?
Well, right before that, right, we're in Gambit's POV, and he says she looks at him with like vulnerability, and she like looks at him completely different than she has before,
mm-hmm.
and then says that. So my interpretation of that was she is actively sort of
possessed.
What? Possessed?
Possessed by the Empress? Like what? Sorry.
Oh, interesting.
Finish your sentence.
No, I didn't get that. Maybe you're right.
I didn't get that. I thought that's where you were going.
No, I thought that she's doing a sort of keep my friends close, my enemies closer type of a thing, where she's like, I am actively trying to undermine Lacine, and the way I'll do that is I'll become her adjunct. And like, I will use my family to insinuate myself into Lacine's trust, and then actively work to destroy Lacine, or maybe not destroy, but somehow, affect the Empire by, being sort of like a undercover agent,
That's interesting. I feel like she has like ambitions. I don't know if they are to destroy Lacine, because the nature of the conversation she has with Pearl isn't like, here's your secret mission. Here's the thing. It's going to get me this leg up. She's like, oh my God, find my sister. To me, it seems like somebody who does care deeply for her family, but also is just hungry with ambition to be part of this empire. I like your take more, because I think it's more interesting. The part I'm curious about is going into this room where she's like, the Empress isn't here. Why was the Empress? Why this room? like what was different about where she was before? Because we saw
Right.
like the only time we saw the Empress directly was when there's like that carcass, and she was kind of like a smoky smoke, not real person voice,
Right.
which made me be like, oh, is she like literally looking through her eyes? Is like, what is the connection there that the Empress is present?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question that we don't know the answer to yet. And I had the same thought is, well, what does that mean she's not here? But I definitely hearkened back to that scene where the Empress can sort of have eyes in a place that she's not, right? There's some magical way of her to be in a place where she's not. And maybe she was in that room overseeing all those meetings, and she's not in this room because it's the different room. You know?
Well, I was thinking, I think the only thing that sort of got me thinking about it now is, you know, what we go on in the next chapters and thinking about Cotillion's
Right.
possession of Apsalar again.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, really interesting, fascinating scene with her asking Pearl and Pearl to basically, you know, her saying Bowden failed, right? And I've lost track of my sister, and I want to be like, oh, girl, I have some bad news.
Dang, you really underestimated hatred.
She was a lot closer than you might have thought.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if Bowden failed so much as was rejected deeply.
Yeah. Yeah. But also,
Rough.
like, your sister isn't your sister anymore. Sorry to be the one to tell you. But anyway, she tasks Pearl with tracking down Felicin. And interestingly, I don't know if it's right here. Oh yeah, it's basically right here. Well, before that, Gambit has a flashback, like a full-on flashback scene.
Oh yeah.
Which I thought was really interesting. We're like literally like get like a diddle-loo, diddle-loo, diddle-loo. And we are seeing what happened in the moment where like Felicin, right before Felicin is like pulled away into the beginning of Deadhouse Gates. And everyone is pulled into the streets and slaughtered. And he's got a bunch of guards that are there in the house to guard her. And one of them is like, hey, my name's Colin. I'm Colin from accounts.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna don't worry, I'm gonna protect her. And
you can trust me. You've definitely seen me before. Give me the girl.
Yeah. And then he's like, whoa, I'm really Bowden. So that was cool. You got to kind of get to see like go ahead. Well, I was say one of the coolest things is, you know, I know how much you and I both, but even more you, love Bowden. And like, I still think he's dead. He might not be, but I still think he's dead. And we still get some more Bowden, right? We get flashbacky Bowden, which is, I'm into it.
He's definitely not dead. I'm insulted that you think he's dead.
I know he's too important.
Definitely not. Well, we met him already.
When did we meet him?
We met him. He's the guy with the two swords.
Oh yeah.
Okay,
right.
I thought you were just like,
No,
maybe
right.
that's not him.
No, I just forgot. I forgot he's the new
knight thing.
The knight.
It's something that I've been like. I honestly think about it once a week and been meaning to text you. This is like speaking of diddly. In that episode, you know, they've got the knight, and he's like, okay, they have their knight of House Death or whatever, and then they said, oh, they need to get this person, and you're like, you asked me, do you think they found that person? They mentioned that it's on another continent. Do you think that person? We've met that person, and I was like, nah. And then like right after the episode, I was like, oh, it's Coltane.
Oh yeah.
It's Coltane.
Man,
I've been
so good.
Thinking
You're
about
so much
that
better
for
at this
weeks.
Than me. That's so good. It's so good.
It's obviously Coltane. So Coltane, he's up in that House Death too. Anyway, sorry.
Interesting. All right. So back.
But what I liked about that scene is he's like, I'm going to take her and I'm going over here. And Gamut even goes, "Oh, you're taking her to like the chains." Like he
Mhm.
knows exactly where Bowden's going to take her, and
Yeah.
for whatever reason, seems to understand why that would be safer than anywhere else, which is sort of
Yeah.
just like a gruesome look at
Well,
like
I think
what everything else was happening around them at the time. That he's like, "Oh yeah, go chain her up. That's the right call."
we saw why, at the beginning of Dead House Gates, it's literally like all the nobles are being pulled into the streets and slaughtered.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you either get slaughtered or you're on the boat to the mines. Like, I'll take boat to the mines, I guess.
Yeah.
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 And especially if I have a bodyguard, and that's what Bowden's like. He's like, "Don't worry, we're going to the mines, but like, I got this. There's no way that her stinky attitude could ruin my protection."
How difficult could a teenage girl really be?
Yeah. I mean, come on. This is easy peasy lemon squeezy. Come on. So after the little flashback, I love this scene where Lestariel is like, I'm not an assassin. You are. I'm not. I'm not into that. I serve the Malazan Empire. I'm a red blade. I have a moral code. And Pearl's like, "Well, this actually could serve the Malazan Empire." She's like, "How?" It's like, "Well, if Tavor is willing to serve up a Talon," and we get a lot of that information of like what the Talons were versus what the claws were, and all that sort of fun intrigue there. He's like, "Well, if she's willing to give us a Talon, that helps the Malazan Empire because we want to eliminate the Talons, right?" That was what Lysine wanted to do. Like step 1, eliminate Talons, introduce claws. And secondly, we now have juice because we know that Tavor lied to Lysine. So if you're really aligned with Lysine, you now know something that is very important to Lysine and would be very important to the Malazan Empire, i.e., Tavor told her that she was sending her sister off to the mines and was actually protecting her.
Well, she did, but it was a lie of omission.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, I like that. It's very interesting because, we've heard about the Talon before. I forget which book. I think it was the second one, maybe the third. I don't know. But there's like, first of all, unoriginal branding. Okay. Claw, Talon, get it. We get it.
She's like, "Oh, the Talons are dead. Talons are dead. What have we got now? Claws."
Sure, kid. We got claws now.
Long fingernails.
We've got French Manny.
I call them the 9-inch nails. Sorry, go ahead.
There seems to be like, at least for me, like the claws that we've met, but like Kalam's was a claw, right? Or was he a Talon?
Neither.
He's just an
I don't think he was
assassin.
either one, but
Wasn't one of them a claw?
Bowden was a Talon.
Bowden was. Maybe that's what I'm thinking about.
And somebody else is a claw. Somebody else is a claw that
but
we
somebody
know.
we like.
Yes.
And so there's
who it is. I don't think it's Kalam.
It's not Kalam, I think.
Kalam is just the Assassin's Guild dude. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't remember who it is.
There's somebody who's a claw that we like. You're right.
Between like, well, we like some of these Talons. We like some of these claws.
Right.
And the claws are Lysine and the Talons are Kellenor.
Yeah.
And so like, that's just that pull of like, we met the Empress. She seems really sympathetic. Kellenved, he was assassinated by Lysine, but he is still around and he has sympathy. I love the push and pull between like, this gray space of who's right, who's wrong, just different feelings happening.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the reasons my intuition is that Tavor is kind of surreptitiously undermining Lysine. Like, I think that's another one of those, we don't like Tavor. No, we do like Tavor. No, we don't like Lysine. No, we do like Lysine. It's all that mushy fun, like and they're against each other, but who's more noble, who's more who's acting in the best interest of whom.
Yes.
Yeah.
And whose
Cool
best
stuff.
interests are good interests.
Yeah, are ones that I want to root
Yes.
for. Yeah, exactly.
It's interesting.
Yeah. And then, I mean, this is really one of the next scene is when they meet with Admiral Nock. Gamut and Tavor talk to Admiral Nock, and that's when it's like, there's a lot of info here, with explaining that, Kellenved's crew and how he put them together and who was part of it. Talk the Elder, Whiskey Jack, Dassam Ultor, Tayshren, and how Surly got rid of all of those people, assassinated, quote unquote. Kellenved and Dancer, we know they ascended instead, but all of this stuff that happened at that time. And Nock is like, my wife Hall was part of this, and we were on a pirate ship. There's a lot of
definitely not dead though, right? I don't know her. We never met her.
Seems like a pretty interesting name to come up. Yeah. Without, if it's just like my wife, let me tell you, I'll never see her again. Her name's Hall. She has blonde hair. You know her in a second. No. Yeah, it's like, but interesting that they had a partnership with this pirate king.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like
Mock?
lots of juicy, interesting backstory here.
Yeah. Mock was pre-Kellenved. And he it was
Mock's Hold. We know about Mock's Hold, right? It's the literally the first thing we're told about in the very first sentence of Gardens of the Moon is the weather vane on Mock's Hold.
I totally remembered that too.
I only remembered it because of our friend Critical Dragon's amazing video about it, where he analyzes the first paragraph of the book. Anyway, but yes.
Well, I read Mock and I was like, Mock irregulars? And I was like, oh, that's Mott's irregulars.
Yes.
Not the same thing.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, this is where we find out that only Nippons are the ones that deserted Lysine, despite her being a Nippon royal, which is interesting. And then the meeting ends with her saying, I'm going to go find to Amber. I'm like, to who? To what?
To why?
To Amber? Feels like a name that I should know, but I don't.
I feel like that one would have stuck.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was like, sure. Can't wait to meet them.
To Amber. All right. To Iphany, to Amber Thiessen. All right. No, listen to me. All right, we're back with Fiddler / Strings. And he has another I'm just going to think about all the information I know about.
The number of times I'm just thinking exposition.
Yeah, I'm just going to think about the SETI and the Quan Tali and the Li Heng. And there's just so much information here. And I'm like, woo.
I was like, yep, for sure.
Yeah. But we meet, I think, a kind of fun new group. Corporal Tar, Smiles, Bottle, and Braventooth. Or we hear about Braventooth, but we meet all the others. Corporal Tar is so named because he can hold a shield, and it's like his feet are set in tar. You can't move them. I thought that was pretty rad. Smiles should smile more. I don't know. That's a little.
All right. I see you, Steven.
And then Bottle holds no weapons. Interesting. And Braventooth was named when he left a tooth in Fiddler's shoulder during a bar brawl. That was pretty cool. It's like, all right. Pretty cool.
He bite.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see the payoff of Bottle in a fight. I just know right? Improvised weapons galore, baby.
So fun.
I'm ready for it.
These three just seem already rad, and they haven't done anything yet. But I liked the whole he can hold a shield. Don't even try. Don't try. He doesn't talk much. Just doesn't. It's pretty cool. And then,
sorry, to that one guy, the Tar. They You ever think about like hitting back? He's like, well, I don't really want to.
Yeah.
Unless
Yeah.
they are annoying or like whatever he says. It's like,
Yeah.
he's like, I'll defend myself, but that's what I'm here for. It's
Yeah.
funny.
Very cool. Very memorable introductions, which
Yes.
I loved. Then another squee moment because in strolls Gessler, Stormy, and Truth. Our bronze-skinned
As soon as they were like, they came in, they had a weird sheen. I was like, no way.
Yeah, totally squeeing. The funny thing too is when they're all like talking about Whiskey Jack and like, Whiskey Jack, you know, that guy who's definitely alive still.
I know.
We'll see again someday.
Can't wait to see that guy. I'm
Yeah.
sure he's crushing it.
What could go wrong? But yes, they are, you know, kind of joshing each other. It's kind of cool, fun, like bros being bros with Fiddler, and it ends. It's so awesome. It ends with like, let's go. We'll tell you a story. Ha, man, my story. It's going to be the coolest one you've ever heard. And Fiddler's like, I'll take that challenge.
All right, let's see.
Cool. Yeah, pretty fun. Pretty fun. Okay, chapter 6. Chapter 6, the first scene of chapter 6 might be one of my, it might be my favorite. It's certainly one of my favorite scenes we've read in the entire series so far.
Yeah.
Just Crocus thinking. I will tell you, one of my quotes this week is from this section. I think I could have quoted just the entire scene.
Same. I had to like control myself on the old highlight there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was one of those moments where I flipped the page. I really felt like these next couple times it was like every page a new name popped up, like a reunion episode of an old sitcom. I could hear the studio audience in my head screaming. Flip the page, Crocus is there. I'm like, buddy. But then it's bitter Crocus. It's not
Bitter
Crocus anymore.
He's Cutter now.
It's Cutter.
Talk to me, Dottie. I'm what's the line from Pee-wee's Big Adventure? I'm hard now, Dottie. I'm screwing it up. Anyway, he's
the only line from Pee-wee's Herman's Big Adventure that I remember is him being, "What a beautiful bicycle! I gotta take it on a paper route right now."
What does he say? I'm a villain, Dottie. No, I'm a whatever.
Well, get there. Somebody's
grind the show to a halt until I figure out the quote. Yeah. I'm a rebel, Dottie. That's what it is.
Yeah.
I'm a rebel, Dottie. Anyway, that's Crocus for you. But also just sort of philosophical journey that he's on. Like he's on this beach. He's digging his fingers through the sand. He's like looking out the boats and just having some thoughts. And it is so beautifully articulated, and the prose is so good. And I just was in that thing with him. And he's been our little fun, like our little, look at how adorable Crocus is. And isn't he just so naive? And now he's growing, he's maturing, he's becoming this sort of grizzled veteran of this experience, but still in love with Absalar.
The feelings that he's expressing and like how their relationship has changed. It's so interesting to get the first impressions of where this relationship has come from through this like pontification on the beach. Yeah. I really enjoyed getting the insight into this in this way.
Yeah.
And a way that also made me like, oh, I liked it when you were such a dweebus. And
right.
Now, like, there's also things that I think are like well said, but not like heavy handed, where I feel like there some sense of like the emotional ambiguity of their relationship.
Yeah.
I wonder into it as much as I feel like Crocus is wondering into it. And I just feel very connected in him feeling these feelings for her, but also being afraid of her, and also feeling like she's cold, and wondering
Yeah.
if there's like,
Yeah, she's been hardened, right, by her brush with the gods and her sort of, the dark things that she's been forced to experience, and his affection for her is hardening him. And
mhm.
it's such an interesting dynamic. I really loved this section. It's just so beautifully written. And also just the notion that, we saw at the end of Deadhouse Gates that Fiddler and Crocus promised Absolar they would take her back to her hometown of Itko Khan, which was, where everything sort of began. The sort of inciting incident of Gardens of the Moon is her being plucked out of Itko Khan and the decimation of that little village. And to see that she reunited with her dad, they were going to bring the both of them back. They did it. And the dad just kind of like lays down and dies there.
Just it was like one last shot of like a deep sadness that was like just the final straw. So
Yeah.
I'm like, as we're talking, there's something that like struck my head that I am paging through my book quickly. I will get back to it. I'm definitely listening. Sorry.
Sure. No. I love all of this stuff with Crocus and him sort of going like, well, she shows up and Absalar's like, well, what's next for us? He's like, I don't really know. Well, we did the thing. We completed our quest. We brought you back to Itko Khan. Your father laid down and passed away. And the fact that Crocus like sees that either Hood himself or one of Hood's
That's
agents.
what I was going to ask you about.
Yeah.
Is those footprints in the sand, that they were wide set apart. They're clearly from a big being, but so like lightly pressed in the sand.
Yeah.
What did you think about him being taken? Because, we've seen like a lot of death in these books, and there's not
Right.
always like faint footprints in the sand. What is the significance of this man being personally taken? Is that because of the connection with Absalar, the possession of these people, and like that tightness?
I think so. I think that is I think that's been established. This is my impression of it, is that it's been established in the novels previously that it's sort of an honor to be personally taken by Hood.
Is that a red herring? Is it actually Hood?
I mean,
or is it Cotillion? Because my impression is that Kellanved and Dancer are threatened by Absalar.
What? Explain that to me.
I don't know, but they're talking about how they feel like their position is being threatened. Somebody is up and coming.
Right.
Maybe it's Chain the bad boy, the big bad.
Yeah. Right.
I think that now that I'm saying it out loud, maybe it's that. But there's something about it that like when I was reading, made me think that they were like getting weird about Absalar. Where like we sort of gave her
too much power.
Too much power, and now she like somebody's like gaining momentum. Well, and I felt like that was Absalar. Even I don't know why now.
Even Crocus makes that point that like she still has some of Cotillion's memories.
Yes,
and she can just sort of access Dancer's. He describes it as being very disaffected and kind of it's not even an emotional thing. It's just like, oh, matter of factly, that's what happened to Dancer. Mm-hmm. So maybe, I don't know. That's interesting. I did not get that sense.
I don't remember what triggered me to think it was Absalar, but I'm saying it out loud now.
I like it. I like it. So next scene is another person that I didn't think we'd run into as quickly. And here's Kalam. Here's your boy. Your boy Kalam.
Oh, I was so delighted. And it's funny, and I don't know if you find this, but I think it's just like my type size in the Kindle, that sometimes I'll do something and it's a page break, but it is not clear that there's like a break in the page because it's right on the boundary.
Yeah.
That I was like, is Kalam walking up to Fiddler or up to Crocus? Like what? There's like a moment where it like jarred me. But either way, so hyped to see this guy.
It's so funny you brought him up last week and the children, and then I did not in a million years think we would be tuning in to Kalam this quickly.
Me neither.
Very cool. I squeed. Yeah, it's very, very excited to see him. And hilarious that the first time we see him, he's like, yeah, Manala kicked me out of the house.
I know. It's kind of like trouble in paradise, huh? Like,
and I love how we have no indication of what went down at all. Like what was the point of contention between the two of them? We don't know.
The only thing that we got was that Manala, they're training these kids to be like an armor.
By the way,
army.
100% nailed it, as you seem to always do, Lana. With you, like, oh, they're making an army. And I was like, I think they're making an orphanage. And you're like, no, they're training an army. And sure enough, like, it literally, like, in the text is like, she is training them with knives and weapons.
And then they're like, oh yeah, great, we're making this army for Shadow Throne, cool. But like when the kids like do good in their training, Manala's like, yes, amazing, and Kalam's like, they're kids. It's like he's got like a weird vibe, and so that's the only sort of discontentment I can see, where he's like, I'm into you, I'm not into whatever this is.
It's very funny to me, and I love this dynamic of Kalam just like, well, I can't go home. So just kind of wander around, and then Cotillion's like, hello, and he's like, oh hey man, what's going on with you? He's like, I need somebody to do something, and Kalam's like, well, my old lady kicked me out, so I have free time.
I just love the disrespect of Dancer. In like when we're first reading about like Cotillion and Shadow Throne, there's like a gravitas and almost like a fear, like a reverence, because they're like gods, right? They're these beings. And then you're like, oh, that's just like the Emperor and his Baal. And now Dancer's like, I'm here. Or Cotillion's like, I'm here and I have a mission for you. And he's like, you couldn't find anybody else to do it? And he's like, well, that's one way of putting it, but that's not how I personally would like to put it. There seems to be like this sass of like you're the godlike beings that we're going to shrug off because whatever.
They're just not good at it yet. You know, like they're so new to being ascended. They're just like, the next scene too is when Cotillion shows up to Crocus.
Yeah.
And Absalom walks away, and Cotillion's like, ha ha, and Crocus is like, oh hey bro, oh hey, and he's like, why do you want to? You could be my. Well, you're an assassin now, right? You kill people.
I think I'm your patron now. I don't want to.
yeah. And he's like, why did you possess? If you just want people to, if you want patrons to do your bidding, why did you have to possess Absalar? And he's like, mistakes were made. It's like, live and learn.
I think that was like the section that made me think that it was Absalar, was the fact that he like deeply regretted doing the old possess. It's like, these funny powers, this is my first possession. I didn't know how fast it would go. My first godlike possession.
Very funny. Very funny. And he's like, you want me to bless your weapons with magic?
You're like, no.
Like, hard pass, bro. I have so many things I could do. Nah, I'm not really interested. So what if I let you call a hound anytime you want? And Crocus is like, I love doggies. I'm in. So they now have a mysterious job from Cotillion. We don't know what it is, but we know that they are going to explore a moving island.
Moonspawn?
Maybe. Interesting. I didn't think Moonspawn. Interesting. But, Could be.
Maybe there's a second one, but the fact that they were like, it's moving, it's getting further away every second. We gotta get this show on the road. Interesting.
Again, you make a connection I did not make. I remember there being, wasn't there like an old almost continent that we heard about that has moved? I could be making that up, but I thought there was, in the whole range of Tisties. Which honestly, have you heard? I think it's supposed to be pronounced Teist. Teist Andir and Teist Edur.
I could be enticed to change my pronunciation.
I don't
There's
know.
something about saying Tisty Andy that is like,
It's so fun. It's
so fun.
Tisty's fun.
But then people are like, it sounds silly. And I'm like, yeah, that's why I like it.
Teist Andy. I don't know.
The Teist. We could do Teist. We could say
We
it
don't
right.
have to. We can do, you know what? Mr. Erikson said we could do whatever we want. So
but now that I know.
Now that I know, I feel kind of dumb. Hey,
right,
back to the next scene is yet another character I did not think we would be seeing this early. I looked at my Kindle and I was like, 33% of the book. We're already back to the prelude guy.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Interesting. So we have Onrak, who is a Logros Talanamas, wandering around like, I can't get home. Ugh, where do I go? Wandering along this wall. Oh, hey, there's a dude chained to the thing. Anyway, on my way. And dude's like,
this
little
is
help?
like,
he's like, oil can.
This is Mad Mardigan vibes to me.
Yes, totally.
Oh my gosh.
Total Mad Mardigan.
Water. Do you have water?
Yeah.
Let me out of here. I love Mad Mardigan. And I like you. I'm like, wow, okay. I know who this guy is. And there's like I love this sequence in this.
It's so fun.
Mm-hmm.
The interchange of them where he's like, hey, let me out. He's like, no. He's like, I can tell you about your enemies. You don't know my enemy. I don't care. He's like, but I will give you awesome conversation. He's like, based on the conversation we've already had, hard pass.
No.
So good. So fun, that exchange. But then he's like, oh, I'm motivated by curiosity. I guess I'll let you out. He's like, thanks for letting me out, but can you get me some food? All right, I'll get you some food. Thanks for the food. Can you cook it? He's just like constantly asking for more. And this guy's like doing hard labor for him. It's
I also
so
just
funny.
love that he's like, all right, I'll let you out. And then starts dragging him and he's like, this is pretty demeaning, but I can't physically do anything about it.
Yeah. He starts killing all these fish. He's like,
catfish, like evolved catfish.
Yeah. Yes. Interesting. But then he's like, I like cooked fish, though. Could you cook it? Very funny. And then, you said there was like an info dump with all of the OG, Kalinved crew, which, yes, but that did not make me real as much as this info dump of like, okay, I'm going to lay it all out for you. What's going on? He's like, I want to give you the lowdown on your people, Talanamas, Talan, Taisti Dur, Thelomentoblakai, Tistandi, we're just like boom, 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 boom. And I was like, oh man, I'm not really grokking this because it's the inner relation of all of those species.
It's the
still
thing
not
that I think
solid in my head.
I've tried to like talk through like, okay, how do these connections go up like 3 times on the podcast? I'm not even going to try and do it. I'll get it wrong. I need to reread this section a couple times to let it sink in. But the part that I mean, obviously like the very tail end of this, the most enticing, the most like seemingly relevant, with immediacy feeling things as they're walking through this world is the part that I did let stick to me with the rest of it. That it's like, specifically the stuff about the 7, the things that we've seen with the 7, who they are they related to the Talanamas? Are they not? Are they just people who like believed in themselves enough that they became gods? Like what is happening with this group that we met for the first time in this book?
So they're walking along and seeing these monuments of these creatures that look like dogs, and Trull, who is our original character from the prelude, prologue, excuse me, senses that there's a gate on the other side of these statues, and then Onrak is like, they're not just statues, bro. 2 of them are alive, and 1 of them is right here. And then it's like dun dun dun. We don't. That's what it ends. So I don't know what to make of that.
Me neither.
But I did like we get some information about the Nascent, which is again the place where
this is the flooded warren.
Yes, the place where Stormy and Truth and all those guys got trapped. Fiddler and Felicin and Bowden, they got trapped, where they discovered the thing that Karsa Orlong had done. That clearly that place is pretty important because we keep hearing more about the Nascent.
Is this the first time we got the name of it? No.
I don't think it's the first time. I don't think so. Because I knew what they were talking about. So, but they tell us that it's a fragment of the Teist Idur Warren Corrald Emerlane, Emerlon, and there's another fragment of it that exists around Tremorlore, which is the place that Fiddler and everybody finds at the end of Deadhouse Gates.
The Azoth house.
Yes.
So here, I'm glad you brought up the Azoth, the dead house, right? Because the dead house is the Azoth house.
Yes.
That was the thing that you said something, and I was like, I have to get to the page where this said this so I don't forget. Something that there was like a one-shot line. Sorry, I'm going to go back in time a little bit in this way. So is there anything else you want to talk about just for this before?
No. Go ahead. Yeah. I think I know what you're going to say, actually. Go ahead.
What's his face is talking. Shoot. What is that guy's name? Admiral Knock.
Yes,
I believe was talking.
Yes.
And he's the guy who was talking about being tight with Kellenved back in the day.
Yes.
And he says, Gamma asked him, is this before they were granted entry into the dead house? And he's like, yeah, but just barely. And as everybody knows, our residency in the dead house rewarded us with, which is clearly evident, certain gifts, longevity, immunity to most diseases, and other things.
Right.
That was like, is it evident? Who's it evident? Who? And then I'm like, trying to count in my head. I'm like, who's been in a dead house? And that made me be like, was Whiskey Jack ever in the dead house? Oh, I went back to see if Whiskey Jack was on that name of list with Dujek. He was not. Those are the two separate, like bridge burner name history versus this Kellenved history.
But don't you think that longevity, immunity to most diseases sounds a lot like the Teblor?
Yes. I didn't think that at the time, but yes.
That's what I immediately thought when he said that. I was like, that sounds like Karsa Orlon. What they're talking about, how like, our hanging out with our gods means that we don't get diseases, that we can eat raw meat, and of course they're like hundreds of years old, right? A child of the Teblor is 40 years old.
I just thought that was because of their like species.
No, they specifically said it's because of their talking to.
They're talking
what's his
to
name?
the gods.
Begins with a U. What is their god?
I keep wanting to say like Udir. It's like with a Y in it.
Yeah. But they're basically the god that he's constantly trying to kill people for.
I didn't put that together. I was like, oh,
I finally got one that you didn't get.
I was like, is this just how like Kellenved and Dancer ascended? It's just the fact that they hang out, and then they're like, because those are also just things that I associate with gods.
Right. Yes. Long life, clearly community. They are immortal beings who get, but it felt like a real specific distinction of
it was like the same language.
Yeah. Right.
Amongst other things. Giant size, perhaps.
Yeah. Interesting, right?
Yeah. Ooh, that is interesting. Ah.
I mean, lots to chew on in these chapters, like hanging out with the crewest of the crew, like all. I mean, if you had a list of
VIPs
people we want to
only.
see,
I've like seen them
again,
all.
it's like these are the
Okay,
bros.
give me
These are the folks.
Heberick.
Yeah, give me Heberick. Give me. I mean, I want to check back in with Sheikh / Felicin, but
I
you
will.
know,
I would do that.
yeah. I mean, this is it was very satisfying. As I said, I was squealing throughout. Just so excited. Every new scene was like, oh, another of my favorite people is back. So very, very cool. I have no sense of, I mean, we got one clear quest and a second vague quest that it feels like this book is going to, we're going to see Crocus and Absalar doing something for Cotillion.
2 vague
right?
quests. Kalam's.
Well, oh yeah, Kalam's quest.
He's like,
too.
that is a gate over there.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. And then the other one being the Pearl Lestar Yill quest, which is go find out what happened to my sister. So those feel like big major threads that we're about to check out in this novel. But
and digging more and more into the 7. Who are these 7 faces in the rock? Right on that precipice.
Yes.
So two like nebulous quests, 1 hard quest, and a mystery.
And you know what else I'm thinking about right now as I look at the percentage of this book that I've read is I assumed we would be hearing a lot about the burgeoning House of Chains in the novel entitled House of Chains, right? We know that what's his bucket is building a new house because he got the place in the deck of dragons, right? He's going to they have a House of Chains and he's putting together a crew. He's Oceans Unleavening this bad boy with the best of the best.
Are we going to flip to the next page and it's like Paran? Like good news? Like
maybe. I'm very excited. I'm having so much fun. Those first 4 chapters were such a blast to be with Karsa Orlang, but now like warm blanket of friends is delightful too.
Yeah, agreed.
All right. Do you have? I know that I have sentences this time.
I feel
as
like
I said,
we're
I
gonna
could have done that entire Crocus sequence. What do you got for favorite sentences?
I only highlighted 2. Every once in a while, I'll like read so many that I'm like, oh, I have to wait until I find the best ones, and then I don't highlight as many as I want. I'm going to read the one that I think that you won't have, and then the other one I'm almost positive that you're going to read.
Okay.
And this one I think just struck me because it is actually a way that I talk a lot about being inward looking versus outward looking. I think a lot on, I think we're talking about it even on like the paid DLC of the normie video game DLC show yesterday. So this is the quote, strings on the boat, thinking about things. It was not, Strings had come to believe, a question of right or wrong. Some cultures were inward looking. Others were aggressive. The former were rarely capable of mustering a defense against the latter, not without metamorphosing into some other thing, a thing twisted by the exigencies of desperation and violence.
So good.
I just loved it. I loved it.
So good. It's so true. Here's one that I'm sure you assumed I was going to do. This is Crocus musing about ascendancy, this notion of ascendancy. Says, ascendancy was but one of the countless mysteries of the world, a world where uncertainty ruled all, God and mortal alike, and its rules were impenetrable. But it seemed to him to ascend was also to surrender, embracing what to all intents and purposes could be called immortality was, he had begun to believe, presaged by a turning away. Was it not a mortal's fate? Fate, he knew, was the wrong word, but he could think of no other. Was it not a mortal's fate, then, to embrace life itself as one would a lover? Life with all its fraught, momentary fragility. And could life not be called a mortal's first lover? A lover whose embrace was then rejected in that fiery crucible of ascendancy. Come on, it's just so good.
Okay, I do have one more then, because you didn't read this one, but that one
Okay.
is excellent. I love this one. It's not as deep of a cut, but I just loved the language here. And it's the whole first paragraph of chapter 6. The journey home had been enough, if only to return one last time to the place of beginnings, to crumbled reminiscences amidst sea-thrust coral sands above the tide line, the handful of abandoned shacks battered by countless storms into withered skeletons of wood. Nets lay buried in glistening drifts, blinding white in the harsh sunlight, and the track that had led down from the road, overgrown now with wind-twisted grasses. No place from the past survived unchanged, and here, in this small fisher village on the coast of Itko Khan, Hood had walked with thorough and absolute deliberation, leaving not a single soul in his wake.
So good. So good. I have, this is a shorter one. Again, this is Crocus / Cutter, and talking about death. Relok, of course, is Absalar's father. He says, Relok and Absalar had finally returned to their home, only to find it a place haunted by death, a haunting that had slipped its fatal flavor into the old man's soul, adding yet one more ghost to this forlorn strand. So beautiful.
So beautiful. So beautiful.
I have one last one. This is a really short sentence. It's just a single sentence, but I love it. I love it. I kind of want to read more just to give it context, but I don't think you need to. But it's basically it's Pearl talking about how like Tavor says he's like, you know, what do you want me to do? And she's basically says like I can't tell you. And he goes oh well, the claw smiled. That is what a good imagination is for, isn't it? One can scrape patterns in the blood, no matter how dried it's become.
Ugh. What a grease ball.
It's so good. He goes on to say, I admit to no small skill in attributing sound justification for whatever I've just done. I love the idea of you can scrape patterns in the blood, no matter how dried it's become. I'll find a reason why I killed that guy.
Yeah.
You know? What it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I'll figure it out.
I'm not scared. I'll do it. Yeah.
So good. Yeah.
Fun.
I mean, this so far, novel 4 is like
it's up there. Yeah.
Yeah. Having so much fun with it. Interesting to see though. Some of the comments from folks are like, we're not so sure if you guys are going to love this one. I'm like, I don't get it.
I don't get it.
Yeah.
Okay. Look, I just like, what would take it down for you?
I don't know. I mean, I think there's a lot of things that could potentially, like if we get to something where I'm like, what, that doesn't seem consistent or whatever. I don't know. I hope that doesn't happen. I'm just having so much fun right now.
Same.
And you know, so we'll see. Thank you folks for hanging out with us. Please get into contact with us, participate in the community. We absolutely love your comments. We absolutely love reading your feedback in the Discord, on the YouTube comments section, and by email. You can email us dlcfeedback@gmail.com. Any of those ways of letting us know what you think or what you're enjoying or your experience with book clubs, and even better, any topic you'd like us to tackle in our non-spoiler section. We're curious what you'd like to hear us discuss. It can be anything. So let us know. We appreciate you watching. We'll be back next week with 2 more chapters, chapters 7 and 8. Until then, I'll give you a chance to dance it out.
When the world's too dark of a place to be, and you need an escape from reality, open up those pages, it's sci-fi or fantasy, whatever genre you please. And join a book club, 'cause you won't read it on your own. Join a book club, so you'll be held accountable. It's just a means to an end, but you're doing it with your friends, so join the book club.